Hi, everyone. Welcome to the February 2026 Research Showcase. My name is Kinneret Gordon, and I am the lead research community officer on the WMF research team. Research showcases are our monthly convenings organized by our team to recognize and share recent research on or relevant to the Wikimedia projects. For those of you joining us live, we welcome you to ask questions of the speakers in the YouTube chat. We will monitor this channel and pass the questions on during the Q&A part of the presentations. And we kindly ask that all attendees follow the friendly space policy and universal code of conduct. As you all know, I usually start with a couple of announcements. I only have two today, really. Wiki Workshop registration is open. Wiki Workshop is the annual forum bringing together researchers exploring all aspects of Wikimedia projects. The 13th edition will be taking place virtually on March 25th and 26th, so next month. I will add the link for registration in just a minute in the YouTube chat. The second announcement is that Wikimania 2026 is set to take place in July in Paris, France. This year, Wikimania coincides with the 25th birthday of the first Wikipedias, so it's a wonderful occasion to celebrate Wikimedia projects, as well as 25 years of the practice and research of free knowledge building. This year, therefore, Wikimania will feature a research track. It will not focus on presenting papers, but instead be an interactive space where researchers from across disciplines can meet with the extended Wikimedia community to discuss key structural changes or challenges that the community and its projects will have to face in the next 5 to 10 years. The research track is accepting submissions until March 31st, 2026, and we hope that you will submit and participate. Again, I will add a link about that also in the chat in just a minute. So with that, I will now pass it on to Deborah, who will introduce to this month's theme and speakers.
Thanks, Kinneret. Hi, everyone. I'm Deborah, and I'm the manager of the UX research team at the Wikimedia Foundation. And I'm glad to introduce today's February 2026 Research Showcase. This month, our theme is AI and communities, and we're delighted to be joined by two speakers. First, Moyan Zhou will share about LLMs in Wikipedia, investigating how LLMs impact participation in knowledge communities. Moyan is a PhD student at the University of Minnesota, studying how AI reshapes human collaboration, learning, and participation. Using mixed methods and a design-oriented approach, Moyan's work focuses on designing AI systems that support rather than replace human roles, especially in education and online knowledge communities like Wikipedia. For the second talk, Yue Wu will discuss their work on AI Didn't Start the Fire, examining the Stack Exchange moderator and contributor strike. Yue is a PhD student at the University of Texas at Austin School of Information. Her research broadly focuses on online communities with an emphasis on data labor, platform governance, and the impact of generative AI on peer production communities. She uses both qualitative and computational methods to understand how communities respond to technological and institutional change. Her work aims to support more transparent and community-centered approaches to designing socio-technical systems. After each talk, we'll have about 10 minutes for discussion, and we're happy to take your questions in the YouTube chat, so please put them there during the talk, as well as after the talk. We'll be continuously monitoring the questions there, and then we'll be relaying those questions during the Q&A. With this, let's turn to our first talk by Moyan. Please take us away. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, for the intro. Hi, everybody. My name is Mo Yan, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Minnesota. And here's my talk about LLMs in Wikipedia, investigating how LLMs impact participation in knowledge communities. And here's my collaborator that I want to acknowledge. With the background and motivation, basically, we observe or we know that contributors are using AI to generate content for Wikipedia, and the community side is worried about the impacts of such content to Wikipedia. So we feel this urge to find out questions like, how are people actually using AI? And what are the results of people using AI? And let's see what's the effect of using AI. And specifically, I want to understand how LLM usage impact participation to the community. And for participation, we conceptualized into 3 dimensions. First, gather knowledge, and second, aligning these knowledge to Wikipedia policies, and third, response from other editors. And to surface editors' lived experience in terms of how they used AI in their editing process, we started recruiting from Reddit, Discord, Wikipedia talk pages, of course, after getting IRB approved. And this study was conducted in 2024. And we reached 16 participants with different levels of expertise and experiences, some spending 5+ years editing more than like 150K edits, while some other just recently joined Wikipedia and made less than 10 edits. Most of them said they used ChatGPT as their primary AI tool to contribute to Wikipedia. And if you want to know more about the participant info, I will for sure include a link at the very end of my presentation to my paper. Through the interviews, we found that novices and experts editor have a gap for their AI usage and experience. The novice here refers to the newcomers or inexperienced editors, while expert refers to the experienced editors. And the difference is not only in one dimension, but across the 3 that we just talked about, gathering knowledge, aligning to policies, and community responses. For the sake of time, we will only focus on the last 2 dimensions, aligning gathered knowledge to policies and also responses from other editors. Even though the quotes are here, but don't need to read over it because I'm going to talk over this slide. Because LLM-generated content fails to align with Wikipedia content policies, for example, the generated content would have a promotional tone or without sources to support claims, even potentially hallucination. Thus, responsibilities lie on each individual editors to make sure that the content aligns with Wikipedia standards. So experts in our interview recognize this reality and also that they need to make decisions about whether content is good to be put into Wikipedia or not, as they utilize Wikipedia policies and guidelines as a plumb line to either evaluate, verify, or modify the generated content. However, on the other hand, due to limited understanding about Wikipedia policies and guidelines, novice editors struggle to critically evaluate and examine the generated content. As the quote from P15 speaks to this, he recognized that he's still learning, even with LLMs, even if he tried to read multiple times to evaluate the content, he still can't tell if the content is good or not. As a result, he realized that the content is not helpful to Wikipedia only after another editor pointed it out to him. As a result, experts and novices received very different responses from the community. For expert, they receive approval, even praise for making good edits without suspicion of AI usage. However, on the other hand, for novices, they receive rejections or even critique, where other editors usually identify their use of AI and prompt removal without making reference to specific content issues or violations. There seemed to be a paradox for participation, especially for novices. While LM did lower the barrier for them to entry or make contributions, the LM also seemed to raise the bar for acceptable participation. We borrowed from the really well-known theory, legitimate peripheral participation, which talk about novices or newcomers enter into communities of practice through peripheral tasks, receiving feedback from other members, and also build legitimacy and trust in order to discuss why this paradox exists. So drawing insights from this theory, we discussed that first, LM make it easier for novices to contribute to central tasks, skipping the peripheral tasks that building up their understanding about the community. So during the interviews, many expert editors mentioned that they started from correcting grammar mistakes or noticing template errors. But in comparison, LMs enable novices right now to create new articles from day one without any prior knowledge about Wikipedia editing. All they have to do is to type into ChatGPT, create me a Wikipedia article regarding to the subject matter. And second, LMs can actually reduce the opportunities for novices to learn from constructive feedback. As mentioned earlier, when other editors see noticeable LM marks, they would tag the edit without referring to the policies or providing explanation. For novices side, they could have benefit from the feedback, but now all they received or the comments they received would just be AI generated, remove. This is a missed opportunity for them to learn from the feedback and internalize policies and why using AI in their way is actually not as good. And third, LMs can entangle effort and intent, which further obscure the social signal to hint legitimacy and gain trust. So low quality edits used to be considered as either learning errors or vandalism, depending on how much effort the editor made. Yet, using AI means that other editors associate poor content with AI, which introduce a third category with no clear definition. I think this might be due to our mixing effort and intent. In other words, from community perspective, they don't really know and can't really tell if novices using LM paid effort or had good intention, which obscures the legitimacy and prevent trust. From novices' perspective, there is no clear path or indication for them to show they paid effort or they have good faith. Based on the discussion, we would like to propose 3 ideas. And if you want to remember anything from this presentation, this is it. First, we would advocate seeing AI for process rather than content. This might mean that researchers can design AI system that guides the process of edit rather than generating content immediately. This may also mean that editors can try to use AI in different way. For example, rather than treating it as a productivity tool for the output, treating AI as a process-oriented facilitator, especially for novices. And second, we propose a very specific feature allowing experts' workflow to be visible by showing my work. Expert can fulfill a template, for example, which they can document their prompts, their response they received, and most importantly, how did they post-edit the generated content, so that novice can learn from these snapshots. I've seen some editors trying to put their history with ChatGPT on their talk page recently, so I think that is actually really good way to go. And third, I would really encourage the community coming together and define acceptable use of AI. This is because these definitions can act as guidelines for novices to demonstrate their intent and effort through lightweight disclosure. For example, maybe grammar revision is an acceptable use. Then novices can tag their edit with AI-grammar to show their good faith through disclosure. Even if their edit can be somehow promotional or the language is not quite right, community can still provide constructive feedback, knowing that they have good intention, and explain why and suggesting how to improve. Thank you so much for your attention, and here's the link to my paper as I promised. Please let me know if you have any questions or insights, and I would love to brainstorm or discuss this work or future work with you. So here's my email, and we're open for Q&A.
All right, thank you. We have a few comments so far on YouTube. And for viewers, please type in any questions that you have now as well. We have one comment about how edits can be perceived as made with AI even when they're not. So it's a situation that's complex. And then a comment about really liking the first suggestion of AI as an assistant more than a generator, and how AI assistance for finding sources and helping review content makes a lot of sense. So thank you all for those comments. Okay, so Isaac has a question here. If you want to go ahead, Isaac.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Moyan. Moyan, I happen to know you've done some follow-up research around AI's assistant around process instead of content. And I would just love to hear you speak more to that point. It sounds like from the YouTube chat, from what Deborah was saying, there's also some like, ooh, yes, around that too. So could you just speak to that part and what you found already?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So, yeah, I had a follow-up work that basically tried to design this AI interaction with novices, and then so basically the whole idea is we should not provide the answer to the users or novices or newcomers or new editors, but let's scaffold for them, which like scaffolding is such a popular like way of interacting. But then in the beginning, when I tested this, actually nobody liked it. So I was like, oh, what's wrong? And then we find out that because it's kind of counterintuitive when we say, okay, like we're not gonna give you any answer, and then here you should follow the way we want you to do. That's kind of like not good for the user side. But then what we did is actually did some stage based. So it's either before editing, during editing, and after editing. And depending on the stage they are in, we provide, for example, just a quick intro to Wikipedia policies. And then they can read if they want to, they can click into those links. And then during edit, I think one thing that we learned from the people's critique is that they want very specific guidelines. Like for example, if they are looking for saying, help me find some resources or some links, then you want to tell them where, like if you don't want to do the work for them, like believing that peripheral tasks are good for them to do, then you have to lead them to very specific websites or give them examples of what counts as a good example versus a bad example. So those are the tricks that we did. And then after edit, we tried to use the assistant as a reflection tool, which asks them, hey, what did you learn through this editing experience? And even providing like a third perspective, hey, like here's a word that seems a little bit promotional, and would you like to change it so other people is higher likely for them to receive your edit well or approve your edit. And also in order to ground these questions or these responses from the assistant, we designed or we implement a smaller scale RAG system, which like retrieves a static pool of policy pages. So then before they sent before the assistant sent the message back, they would be able to drag actual specific enough information to the editors. And then the second round, like when we reach out to a new pool of newcomers, actually they really enjoyed it. And then they said, oh, actually I can see that I'm learning so much from this tool. So I think it's okay, I guess, for my learning lesson is that it's okay to slightly reject the user because all they want is help me like do this task, which is understandable. But then if you are to reject it, I think you have to provide some other meaningful information or can give them enough information for direction. Like, then what can I do? So that they know what they do instead of just letting them like go into the dark and don't really know. So that would be considered very unuseful.
Can I do a quick follow-up, Deborah?
Yeah.
One of the interesting things to me, you were also mentioning kind of this paradox, right, of the like lowered bar to editing, but at the same time higher bar for acceptance. And I know this experiment was, I think you were doing it in a lab, so you weren't actually doing it on Wikipedia, but I'd be curious for your thoughts on, does that help address that paradox too? Like if it's the AI helping the editor craft the content, do you think that also, yeah, helps them not have to have this higher bar because there's not this obvious kind of LLM tinge to the content, or yeah, just thoughts around that.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I do think one of the finding or one of the reason why like the communities responded with critique and rejection is because they perceive our marks like maybe bullet points or like just the feel of like I've reached to like AI cleanup crew as well, and I'm trying to ask them, hey, how do you decide whether it is written by AI? And then they told me this feeling, this reads feels like AI. And so I think that's what we think is the root reason, because the mark is too obvious that people can actually recognize that they have used AI, like more confident about that. But then for the expert side, when they use AI, because they've done post editing so much that people don't even suspect they have used AI and say, hey, actually, I like your edit. So I do think if the tool is able to engage the newcomers a little bit more cautiously and help them to put effort into it, I felt like, because, my understanding of Wikipedia is that we value good faith over the learning mistakes. So I think if they can demonstrate their effort and their good intent, then maybe it's possible for the community to receive it a little bit better than when they can't. So I do think if they can engage more with the content, because I also think I've seen cases where it just seems like this newcomer wanted to do things or just create an article, and then they just throw it in ChatGPT and then copied everything into Wikipedia. I think that's definitely not a good use of AI. It will be low quality for sure. And then I don't think anybody want to engage with that material either. So I do think like as long as the newcomers can demonstrate their intention and their good faith and their efforts, it's possible that the situation would be a little bit more improved.
Yiwei, do you have a direct response on this topic?
Yeah, could I also ask a follow-up question? Okay, I will. Yeah, so thank you so much, Mo Yan, for this great presentation. I really learned a lot about how newcomers are using AI tool for generating content on Wikipedia. And actually, my question is a follow-up about the building AI system to support the editing process. I'm curious whether, because you mentioned there are newcomers and also long-term contributors. So I'm curious if the long-term contributors are also involved in providing feedback during the system development. I'm asking this because I'm very curious. Like from my personal experience is in Austin, Texas, we're having a Wikicurious event, and I have been attending it for multiple times. And there are newcomers who are actually getting engaged in editing on articles they are interested in, but sometimes they are uncertain about like their answers being actually accepted without reverting. So in order to helping them better engaged and also helping like kind of like training them to having better editing strategies. The local, I would say wiki group having a Discord server that they having a specific channel called Office Hour, which are long-term contributors leading those Office Hour to mentor the newcomers to do the editing process. So I'm wondering maybe the interaction between long-term contributors could also be maybe interesting to see how to support the editing process in building the AI system.
Yeah, that's definitely a very valuable insight. I think there are multiple, multiple ways that long-term or experienced editor can help in this situation. For example, like as what you are saying, like they could directly interacting with the newcomers, and I think that's one of the ideal situation that we all wanted, like actually having a mentor to guide you, right? But then the I guess the flip side of the same coin is that maybe like all these mentors or experienced editors are very short, like they don't have much time because they are volunteering for Wikipedia, and maybe they can only take one or two mentees, and maybe like the response time is very like span over like maybe like hours or even days, because like we all have a daytime job. So I think I'm kind of seeing the system as a complement to that. Like if the like real human being is not accessible, maybe this system can help in that way. And I also think the more experienced editors can help evaluate the system, like whether it's giving the right answers or whether like they would do some prompting to make the answers a bit more like a little bit more better in that way. And also yeah, but then in our the follow-up work that I mentioned, we didn't reach out to the editors, mostly because it's just like a concept that we're trying to test. So I think if we were to deploy it actually, I think we do want like valuable insights from these experienced editors to make it even better. Yeah, and then the third one, I think just editor, I think showing their work with LLMs would be really helpful. The show your work kind of feature, I'm actually really quite interested in that, if actually they show how they've done AI edit, which I've seen like a few on the different people's talk page, and I wonder if that becomes something that people are open about, what would be that effect. So those would be like how I can see the experienced editors actually help with building the system and help the newcomer or novices in general.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really look forward to seeing this this system in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Next, Kenra is going to voice a question that came from the YouTube chat from Andrew, and then after that, we'll save other questions and discussion until after the second talk. So go ahead, Kenra.
Thanks, Deborah. I'll actually try to connect a couple questions here, and maybe we can get a couple done already now. So when, first of all, people are really thinking, I think are excited about this work. And there is a question if you also asked editors if they are concerned about more generated data overflowing Wikipedia. Do they have safeguards against automated vandalism? Curious to hear their and your thoughts. And have there been, you've talked a little bit about sort of follow-up studies, but have there been any updates on how editors use AI since the study was conducted, since things are moving really fast?
Yeah, thank you for those questions. I think these are good questions for sure. I think, I think for concerns, editors do voice concerns, and I think a lot of the concern actually from experienced editors talking about novices using like AI in their editing process because of this idea that newcomers have not yet understand Wikipedia policies and they can bring low quality content into Wikipedia. And if it's the norm, then it would take so much work to, refine that or redo those impacts. And I think generated content, like whether it's copyright and all those concerns people have voiced, hallucination is one big one. But I think kind of connecting to the second question, I'm also very curious. Like as I was preparing for this presentation, I was wondering, I'm wondering if like what I'm saying here is still true for today, because when I talk about hallucination, like it was really bad like 2 years ago, but then now like it seems to get a bit better as long as you give them like give a good prompt. So I wonder if like people can find sources, if people can actually involve like their own judgment in evaluating their edit or the sources the AI or LM find. But I don't have a like 100% sure answer to this question because I haven't really investigated that. But I personally, my personal thought would be like it seems like I think it seems like automatic vandalism is possible with what we have right now. But still, I can see like Wikipedia as a whole community fighting against that really well because, there's AI cleanup team that the Wiki project, they have tagged so many like suspected AI usage and then tagging even with different problems that they see. So I do think, I guess all I'm trying to say is I think problems is possible and concerns are real, but it does take like investigation into understanding that space. I hope that answers the question and yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayan. And next we will turn to Yue to give your talk, and then we'll follow that with another period of Q&A. So please keep the questions and comments coming over the YouTube chat. Thanks.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let me try again.
Okay.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Okay, and then I will start. Hello, my name is Yue. Today, I will present a case study on the online Q&A platform StackChange, focusing on why and how its moderators and users organize a large-scale strike against the platform operator. This work is done in collaboration with Leah, who is a PhD candidate from University of Minnesota, and along with my advisors, Professor Nathan Tabalanza-Heiss and Professor Hanling Li. In our daily life, we post, comment, upload, and even search. But during this process, we really think about we are actual laborers. So as this MIT Technology Review article argues, we are all AIs free labor workers, and once AI became profitable, the unpaid labor suddenly became very valuable. And we all know with the success of generative AI, content platforms are rethinking their business models. Many of them have started monetizing the content they host, such as setting up paywalls or selling content in bulk to AI companies. However, contributors rarely have a say in platforms' decision about their content. We can see this happening across the internet on different platforms such as Reddit, StackChange, DeviantArt, Tumblr, and even more. And in response, many users of these online knowledge sharing and content sharing platforms have voiced strong opposite opinions to platforms' unilateral decision making. In some cases, these tensions have even evolved into strikes, such as the one on Stack Exchange, the case study we will introduce in this presentation. Before we actually move on to the details of our case study, I want to introduce a little background about StackChange. Here is a partially listed sites on StackChange network. I know the Stack Overflow will probably be the most well-known one, and it is one of the networks of the StackChange, which is a large online Q&A network that attracts over 100 million visitors each month. We chose the StackChange because of its unique community-driven model that attracts millions of contributors who contribute their knowledge on a volunteer basis. And StackChange is also very unique for its participatory governance model, which is a distribution of governance power among contributors to a bottom-up mechanism such as committee members' elections for leadership roles, distributed moderation, and open policy discussions. The image I show here is a post about 2025 moderation election on Stack Overflow. Okay, now let's move to our case study. So in 2023, StackChange platform made a series of policy changes related to AI and data access after the large language models became popular. For example, we can see on this post, it's summarized by the StackChange moderators. The platform had forbade the moderators from moderating AI-generated content and restricting access to its data dump. And in response, the committee members organized strikes to express disagreement with StackChange platform's actions. To study this specific online collective action, we conducted a qualitative study by collecting data from online discussion threads and conducting interviews with 14 committee members. We chose to collect data from two different sources because we recognize that online discussion and interviews, they are not interchangeable evidence of participants' belief, and they can complement each other. The public online discussions help us understand general trends actually at a different stage of the strike, such as why the committee escalated to a strike and how they mobilize. We were able to learn the service pattern and develop interview questions from it. And after finalizing the interview questions, we conducted a semi-structured interview with 14 StackChange users, moderators, and former staff. The interview helped us cross-validate and triangulate whether the strike events reflected in public data were accurate, as well as understand the committee's long-term plans and reflections. And through our study, we also operationalized different series. So the first series we adopt is the Albert O. Hirschman's Exit Voice and Loyalty. According to Hirschman, members of an organization, they face two options to remediate their grievance. One is exit and the other one is expressing voice. So in our case study, we see that despite StackChange having affordance for participatory governance, the StackChange platform still lost a committee loyalty. And the committee tried to fulfill their values through a range of strategies, such as withdrawing from volunteer moderation or leaving the platform, which is exit in our case. And another strategy they adopt is by updating meta-level policy critics, which is voice in our case. Another theoretical framework we adopted is the concept of effective voice, introduced by Professor Serge Frey and his colleagues. Effective voice refers to contributors' ability to influence governance outcome in ways that are binding on the platform without just being symbolic. So we can see that Stack Exchange Committee, they actually already had channels to express their voice, such as a meta discussion. But those channels, they only serve for the Stack Exchange Committee to express their grievance, and their feedback wasn't actually taken into the platform's decision-making process. And this disconnect drove the committee to seek more effective voice through collective action. And here on the slide is a summary timeline of our findings, along with the theoretical framework we adopt. Interestingly, we found that the Stack Exchange strike didn't begin with the generative AI. That's the reason we use the title AI didn't start a fire. We can see actually it began years earlier with the company's governing paradigm shift slowly from participatory governance towards a more unilateral decision-making. AI then served as a trigger for the strike in 2023, which was followed by the community mobilization and also the aftermath of the strike. We're going to unpack each time period one by one. We're first going to talk about the long-term grievance. So across the interviews and public discussions, participants describe a long-term deterioration of their relationship with the platform, which set the stage for the strike. A lot of them felt the platform shift focus from everyday community life to a more top-down, profit-driven initiatives. And one of the most famous cases is Monica incident, which was during the time the company revoked the status of a popular moderator known as Monica in 2019 for unclear reasons. The community got outrageous and disseminated information across multiple sites to pressure the company into reinstating Monica as a moderator, but Monica never got back her moderator status. So among these conflicts, we saw the meaning of governance as one of the main arguing points. Contributors saw themselves as stakeholders, not just users. They value the opportunities for self-governance. However, when they tried to give feedbacks, many felt ignored, as mentioned by one of our community members. So when communication happened, it was always one-sided, with the company unwilling to receive critical feedback. And in the previous section, we discussed a long-running grievance that made the community frustrated and anxious about the platform. So by the time the Stack Exchange platform introduced new policies on AI-generated content, many saw it not as an isolated issue, but also as a final straw in a long-term mistreatment. We will unpack how generative AI further exacerbates the community's core value of quality knowledge. So when large language models such as ChatGPT emerged, many newcomers began posting AI-generated content on the sites, which is similar to Moya's talk, how newcomers on Wikipedia start using AI to posting, to editing the article. So the flood of AI content created a huge spike in moderators' workload. When moderators shared that they were still processing flagged AI content from the previous year. And as one contributor mentioned, moderators have the job of sorting the junk out. It's unfair to have low effort, incorrect content next to carefully written answers. So for moderators, this wasn't just about spam cleaning. It felt like their volunteer labor of curating human knowledge was being devaluated. Along with contributing to high quality knowledge, for years, the contributors on Stack Exchange also embrace free knowledge ethos, which is the idea that knowledge should be open, reusable, and preserved for everyone. The community has different forms to follow this principle, and one of them are data dump. Data dump is hosted on Internet Archive under a CC BY SA license. They enable projects such as KeyWix, which is a project provide offline access to educational content, and Overflow Offline, which is a project that makes the exchange knowledge available in places such as Antarctica or even prisons without internet access. By archiving at the Internet Archive, the dump serves as a safeguard to protect the community knowledge. However, with the rise of generative AI, Stack Exchange started to put a restriction on its data dump, such as changing policy on how users can access the dump. They allege that this is a guardrail for the community, so it's for community good. But when the company restricts the data dump, it further fuels the community's anger and intensified the protest atmosphere. So, because the committee mentioned that even though the API still remains, they couldn't replace the bulk access that many downstream projects depend on. And more importantly, the move broke the promise that contributors expect that their shared knowledge could stay open to the public while being acknowledged by their contribution. Yeah, so that's a post on Stack Overflow stating that they are no longer providing the Creative Commons data dumps. And up to this point, we have discussed the long-standing grievance and emergent tension that set the stage for conflicts. But grievance alone don't create a strike. So how did the community actually organize the strike? According to our observation and interviews, the strike was not a spontaneous reaction. It was a coordinated collective effort involving both moderators and regular users, united by shared grievance and aimed at pressuring the platform to reserve its AI-related policy decisions. We found the committee used a tiered communication method that starting from moderators to coordinate the strike at a very early stages, such as whistleblowing and strategic planning in their private channels. And then the strike information was disseminated to the public in Discord channels, such as they volunteer to build a strike website and meta posts for broader outreach. Yeah, so we can see on the right side of the slide, it's the strike website voluntarily developed by the community members. They're aiming to inform the public and also calling for participation to sign a petition letter. So similar to many offline collective actions, the community's main goal was to halting the moderation and knowledge contribution activity to disrupt the Stack Exchange platform's main operations. And finally, we tend to introduce what happened after the strike. So what were the long-term consequences after the strike? Besides the main strike part, we observed that the community also tried to migrate to alternatives such as Codidact, which is a similar site to Stack Exchange, but remains completely open sourced. The community also tried to leverage decentralized knowledge sharing, such as using BitTorrent to preserve a data dump outside mainstream channels. Okay, we just followed through a long arc of frustration, coordination, and collective action based on the findings I went through. Now let's zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture. Overall, we can see the strike was not just a general hatred towards AI, but also years of unilateral decision-making on the company side and the accumulation of community grievance. This trend also reveals multiple layers of tension between online knowledge contributors, platform operators, and AI companies. So the questions I want to ask here is, how do we address these tensions in the age of the generative AI and data economy? So first, kind of jumping over to the community side is through this case study of Stack Exchange, we can see when a community has the ability to exit, platforms are more willing to listen to their voice, but exit is never easy. We saw Stack Exchange community members attempt to migrate to Codidact, but the effort was very slow, difficult, and resource intensive. Past contributions still remain locked in Stack Exchange, and moving to an entire new community space are very laborious. So what does this mean for community members? Our first recommendation is communities may want to think about backing up their data regularly. One approach is to appoint a data steward. Someone may collect and archive the contribution using maybe scraping tools, APIs slowly to depositing into public repositories such as Internet Archive or torrent systems. And when the platform restrict data access, communities might even experiment with data donation, which is by voluntarily preserving knowledge outside the platform's direct control. Another potential solution is communities can also potentially benefit from building off-platform space, space such as Discord servers, independent forums, or even email lists can help the members stay connected. They can coordinate their response and share responsibilities across different layers of contributors, such as moderators, developers, and designers. And now let's shift to the responsibility for platform operators. For example, platforms such as Stack Exchange. So for platforms that we realized that even though the community members, they are trying to express this grievance, but they're not transferring into any actionable items. So platforms may need to support a more effective voice. This means that moving beyond simply distributing surveys to collect the community opinions. Instead, maybe they can create more binding mechanisms, such as regular online town halls, open Q&A sessions, or even review boards that bring community representative into actual decision-making process. And the next example I want to bring up is something learned from Blue Sky. Platform could also think about designing for credible exit. So when users they accept a platform, this behavior shouldn't be automatically being treated as a failure. So in many cases, the possibility of exit can actually strengthen the voice and accountabilities. And Blue Sky here, for example, has treated the credible exit as a design goal by prioritizing data portability and open sourcing much of its code. These practices can help the community not just being permanently locked in a single system. And the last one example we want to mention is actually from Wikimedia Foundation. Platforms, they can help to balance the openness with sustainability. The one great operation model actually comes from Wikimedia Foundation because Wikipedia data is free and openly licensed, but there's also a Wikimedia Enterprise API that charges high volume enterprise buyers while keeping access free for researchers and independent developers. The hybrid model allows the platform to sustain infrastructure while staying true to its free knowledge ethos. And more importantly, such a model requires dialogue with communities such as attribution, financial transparency, licensing, and perhaps even a portion of revenue to support moderation tools and contributor compensation. So overall, what we have identified and suggested points towards a larger issue, the need for community-driven data governance under the age of AI. So right now, most data sets are governed either by platforms that host the data or by data curators, often without input from people who actually contribute the data. And this can cause contributor loss agency and consent is really obtained. And if the platform and AI developers don't address it, we may see more strike, more unrest, and the weakening of the online knowledge commons. And moreover, recognition really matters a lot in this case. Attribution should not only honor contributors, but also strengthen data provenance. Right now, many AI datasets lack the provenance information, which make it difficult to trace where the data came from. Communities and platforms could create licensing terms that require AI developers to credit original contributors while also improving documentation practice such as data sheets to prevent misuse. Thanks for listening to my presentation. If you want to read more about the study, you can access the shorter version, which is a blog overview about the study, and the longer version, which is on archive. Here is a link. It will also appear on CESC 2026. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eve. So far, I am not seeing questions in the YouTube chat. So viewers, please put questions or comments there that we can ask now during this Q&A period. While we see if we get questions there, I'll go ahead with a question from me. First, I just want to point out the really nice tie between these two talks today, which made this like a great theme of just, in your work, you identified how one of the emergent reasons for the strike was the community's concerns about the influx of low quality AI generated content. And in Moyen's talk, that explored how some editors are using LLMs and some of the impacts that that's having. My question for you, Iwe, is you had a lot of great recommendations in your talk about recommendations for online communities and for platform operators. I'm wondering, in addition to those, do you have any thoughts on specific implications for Wikipedia, just given kind of the context of Wikipedia and as it also relates to AI content?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, even though my study is on Stack Exchange, but I can definitely see the similarity and connection between Stack Exchange and Wikipedia, because they are knowledge commons created by volunteer contributors, and the knowledge is collaboratively through like editing, and they're open license under CC BY-SA license. So I think one main direction I'm thinking about, maybe specific for Wikipedia as a knowledge common in the future, is we can see the expansion of technology is very fast, and maybe we have to embrace the change. But when we're embracing the technology advancement, more and more we can see the contribution from Wikipedia or maybe Stack Exchange, they are becoming more and more invisible in the entire AI ecosystems. So I'm thinking about another way can maybe address this problem, and maybe by collaborating with different, for example, maybe open source AI organizations. And the goal is not to stop the AI, but maybe to redesign the relationship in the ecosystem. So we can maybe make the knowledge commons to be more visible inside the AI outputs through attribution and governance signals. Maybe we can also redesign the incentives so the contributors can see their impact in the entire AI system. So for example, communities can help redefine the standard for how AI system can be used and represent their knowledge and their voice, instead of just treating Wikipedia as a raw training data source. We should treat them as more collaboration of knowledge infrastructure. And then we can preserve the collective intelligence in the age of AI.
Thank you. Layla, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Moyen and Iwe, for the presentation. I'll start maybe with a question for you, Iwe, which is about kind of the value of potentially looking at offline examples as ways to learn about how these sharing of governance or adapting to new models of governance can be done. One reason I think about it is that we are currently facing a challenge that, as you were talking, the incentives of some of the larger players in the market of AI is not necessarily aligned with the incentives of nonprofit or more kind of social good projects and products that are on the internet. So the challenge that introduces is that many of these platforms, for example, understand the value of these individual projects on the internet. However, in reality, because of the competition that they're facing and their model being a for-profit model, what we see is that, they have challenges responding to, having, let's say, a project like Wikipedia being top priority for them, right, in this moment of competition and AI on the market. So there's a reality that some of the platforms, like including Wikipedia, is facing, which is the incentives are not aligned, and the big players are. It is hard to imagine that these incentives would be aligned in the short term in some ways, right? So long term, things may change. My question to you is, like, I'm very eager to understand, are there examples of, like, either online or offline ways that the organizations and communities have worked together that have been working really well? You mentioned already Blue Sky. You kindly shared some of the experiences of Wikimedia Foundation. Are there other examples that we should look into and learn from, where this kind of, the governance changes need to happen under tension? Have you run into them in your studies? Do you have pointers for us to send us to and learn more about?
Yeah, I have a question, a clarifying question on your question is, are you asking about if this study was also kind of inspired by offline collective action?
Not that, but whether as part of this study, if that is also good to answer. However, my question was, if as this part of this study or your thinking in this space, you have run into other examples that have done the job well and we can learn from. And those examples can be from the offline world, for example, governments sharing governance and power with their constituents, or in the online spaces, Blue Sky or otherwise, that you were mentioning. I'm looking for golden standards or places that have done it right under tension, basically.
I see. Yeah, thanks for the question. I will say I may not be answer to the golden standard, because I realize no matter that's an online community or it's offline, I was maybe offline community or even the governance within a country itself, each of them maybe have their own individual social norm and social practice. And I think in order to better, like, because we had they have their individual social practice and social norm, maybe it will be better to engage more like community's voice based on the community itself. Because I would say maybe the tension happen within Stack Exchange. It might be happen on other knowledge sharing website as well, but it might be very different from Wikipedia, because they are existing different norms. I maybe at this point I don't have a perfect answer to how we address that, but I think an important thing to consider might be the community data governance. Like, we ought to think about how each individual communities are thinking about the rules should be applied to them, and we need to urge for using any binding mechanisms such as the review board or everything that can take into actions to invite the community members to look into the decision-making process.
All right, thank you. Want to give one last opportunity for any questions. Looking at the YouTube chat, the question that had been asked there was answered in the chat. Thank you. Any other questions? Moya, go ahead.
Yeah, this is very general, and I hope it's an easy question, but I'm just wondering, like, what is if you were to share your learning lesson from this research topic that you've done, how would you suggest the researchers here approach the communities in the era of AI? Because I feel like we have different way of thinking around AI. Like some of us are optimistic, some of us are, more passive. Like what would you say to the researchers here? Like what would be your takeaway or learning lesson?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mo Yan. I will say I may have two different takeaways. So the first one would be more more AI in general, because I can briefly mention that sometimes we do need to embrace the technology change, but how and and um, even though many communities have like their different approach, some of them they are completely against the AI, but some of them are kind of adopting the AI. But I think in this general trend, what we can do I would say, to help the community or support the community we belong to will be um, follow the community's value and the norm, something I also kind of partially mentioned, because we had to respect the community norm to make the community's opinion to be heard. And I actually also came to understand another thing is the form of resistance, because actually a lot of communities they are not willing to completely rely on the AI. Um, and I got a chance to learn different forms of resistance. So for example, this case study in Stack Change, the community members they are stopping their contribution. We can see that's a direct form of resistance against the AI. But I also see other form of resistance. Maybe it's not just directly related to stop moderation, stop contribution knowledge. It's more like sending out general post. So one of the community members from Stack Exchange, he constantly updating his own blog about what's going on the site and how should we make sense about the fast growing technology and how could we be aware of all the issues caused by it. So I also consider this as a form of resistance and also, but it's definitely more in a more gentle way. It helps the world to understand the limitation of generative AI. Yeah, so I think that's also another takeaway for me is resistance can come in many different forms, and we can just adopt to any of them to we can adopt any form of resistance based on the community's norm.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll pass it now to Kinneret to close us out.
Thank you, Deborah. And thank you to Moyan. Anyway, this was really, really interesting. Thank you for presenting your papers and work. Thank you also for your collaborators for working on this and also being with us here today. A special thanks to Deborah for helping organize and hosting today's showcase. Special thanks to everyone in the audience for your comments and questions and feedback in the chat. Next month, we won't have a showcase because, as mentioned, we will meet up for Wiki Workshop. We hope you can join us there and that we will see you there. And with that, thank you all. Okay, we are not live anymore. We're back.